Aloha. Today I want to do a real quick video and narrow down the perspectives of excuse me, narrow down the perspectives of the focus of energy that we get locked into that keeps us within a particular vibration of time and consciousness. And what's happened is, basically how I'm seeing is that every single detail, every single part of this reality that we call reality, based upon everything that kind of jumps off from the mainstream circuit, like the public education system, the university system, everything that spreads out from there, politics, all of this is a design to distract your maximum focus. So when you go into like a meditative state, excuse me, when you go into a meditative state, there's like layers of meditation that you can get into. How I'm seeing it is that, like, when you start meditation, like when you first start meditating, you're like going to the door and cracking the door of outside of this world into the allness that you exist as. And when you go into that space, you're just cracking the door. When you go deep into deeper meditations, you're actually like sticking your head through the door and looking around. See, but when you first start meditation, you're still mostly distracted by excuse me. You're still mostly distracted by the world, because you're transitioning from one energy to another, and through practice you move more into a deeper layer of who and what you are. So just like going into meditation takes practice and is an entire transition, the life that we exist as, our journey is on that same kind of trip. And what happens is, the way the reality that we exist in as now, that is being manipulated by so-called powers that be, who are of a service to the self at the expense of any energy that's still connected to source or nature, spirit. That is ultimately the design. Those energies, those focuses, those entities, I almost said entertainers, which is pretty much the same. Those entities are so separated from their self and so simultaneously locked into the idea of themselves based upon the illusory reality that they have bought into. Like, celebrities are only famous because of the system that they have signed a contract within. Like, the same thing happens with the military. Your rank only matters based upon the the military system itself. You can't go down to East Oakland and be like, I'm a sergeant major. They will slap you in the face. They're like, I'm a general. They will fuck you up. They don't care. Like, anywhere you go, you're in another world, basically. So it doesn't matter. It's like celebrities. If you go down to talk to any kids who don't know about who've been separated from television, and you talk to them, you're just like a big kid. You're not famous. It doesn't matter. You're just a regular person. So, and you can see that celebrityism, Hollywoodism, Scientism, all these celebrities in these worlds are largely based upon the physical appearances. The physical appearances are a representation of the trap that is the physical reality. That means to convince people that we are more of the body, more of physics, more of the idea of this reality than we are of the soul, of the spirit, and of the maximum potentials of the mind and the life force energy, or the like the chi energy. That's like the actual energy of our life force is what is known as chi. And then you have, like I mentioned in previous videos, you have your brain, you have your mind that thinks and is heavily active. Then you have the heart mind, which has pieces of the brain in there and also has a memory and an activation points and energy inputs and outputs. You also have the stomach brain, which is like your power center, your earliest power center, your rooted power center, where your chi energy is formed. And this is like your solar plexus. So your everything related to your solar plexus, your actual sun energy, your concentrated energy, like all your intestines and everything, that's all wrapped around there. It's like however many feet or however many times longer than you. That's a lot of concentrated cell energy. So cells in a battery, that's what makes a battery. So just think about like all those folded cell energies, along with the food cells that you eat and the water cells that you drink. Excuse me. All of that is a powerhouse, a power center. And it's not just about power to go on a basketball court and go dunk on somebody. No, that's just like a rudimentary form of energy. It's a life force energy power center, which is why the genetically modified food program is so focused on getting people overweight and getting people to ingest meat, because they want constant dead energy in your life force center. So if you're eating dead meat, emotionally dead, fear-filled, actual tissues from other beings, other entities who were sacrificed for your energy, for lack of a better word, then you are buying into the system, the guidelines of the same system that has celebrities being worshipped. Service to self, just in the form of sacrificing another animal for your own benefit when it's not needed. It's only convinced to us that we need it. And then we get, oh, well, I'm a meat eater. And I'm like, all right, well, if you were born in a vegetarian, the same person, even adopted in a vegetarian community, you'd be eating veggies for the rest of your life. Don't give me any of this shit of I'm a carnivore. How the fuck are you different from any other human out there? This is a damn fact. If you, as the person you are right now, were born in a vegan or vegetarian community, you would be a vegan or a vegetarian for the rest of your life. In fact, you would... I don't even want to go into that because you know what I'm talking about. So for people who are still convincing themselves, because that's what it is, convincing yourself that you are a carnivore or you need meat, I can see that if you are on the path of removing meat from your system. But there's a difference between saying that because you're formalizing yourself, saying that you're a carnivore and, excuse me, and actually understanding that you are on a path towards a higher vibration, calling yourself like in movement. Because words are energy. Words formalize our reality. So I want to stay on focus. This is still on focus still because It relates to energy and focus as a whole and the design of the system that keeps us locked into a particular version of reality. The meat-eating industry and the low-vibrating, dense energy system is obvious when you watch these commercials. Anything that needs to be sold to you, you don't need it. You ultimately don't need it. Your body, your intuition will tell you what you need. And everything that comes on television, you don't need that shit. You need it for the system. They need you more than you need it. And when you look into it, you really don't need any of it. Because you are more of who you are outside of that world than you are the person that they think you are and try to convince you that you are by all these commercials, meat commercials, technology commercials, alien commercials, all this shit. They try to convince you of something that you're not in order to validate the system itself. This is what the infrastructure of the mainstream media is. And I don't want to make this video too long. Because I'm working on something right now. I'm putting together a book now. This is why I'm kind of slowing down on videos too. I'm shifting my energy and my focus into something else, but I just wanted to share this right now to get it out there, because this is how I see all of the systems as they are piecing together, as people are unveiling the compartmentalization of focus and how it affects our reality and time itself. So, like I explained, the meat eating and the commercialization of your world, your energy, your life force energy, all of that is being manipulated on subtle layers, on every layer, outwardly, inwardly, collectively, so on and so forth, over generations, over time, through your history, through the distraction of your present moment, and through the artificial creation of your future. This is what this trending stuff is. This is what everything that you're bombarded with on every day and every day. It's a design. It's an algorithm itself. So some of the main things that are out there that we are distracted by, that we are convinced is our reality, is stuff like alternative news, because this is trying to tell you that it still believes in the American dream, which is the colonial system, which is the enslavement program. It still wants to salvage that. It wants to save this. When you understand that every Native American treaty has been broken, not to mention the fact that the psychology of so-called, or the psychology of Aboriginal Americans, the so-called Black or African Americans, so-called African Americans, are actually another equal version of the Native Americans. So they want to tell you one side of the story in order to keep you separated on one part, but also disempower you. So you have an entire group, culture, race of people who think that they are who they are based upon what they are told they are. So you're told you're black. You're told you're Negro. You're told you're African American. You are told you're your slave master's name. You're told all this shit. There's a different energy and relationship to your reality when you inhabit a space of knowing who and what you are. When you know that the majority of the so-called black people in the United States are Aboriginal American, that is a totally different energy and focus. That's basically the energy. Imagine that the Native Americans naturally still have, but from like a Black Panther perspective. Imagine the connection with spirit and the roots, the organic nature of this land. Imagine the entire so-called Black, so-called African American community tapping in to the spiritual perspective, the spiritual anchors of a knowingness that our storyline never was from a slave master or enslaved perspective. That was the mainstream media of that time. That was the mainstream media. That was the TV show that was played when Columbus got here. And every show after that was just an extension of that. And eventually, since we kept watching that television, which was just the status quo, we believe that as our history. And when you believe yourself, just like when people believe their materialistic versions of themselves based upon the social media and the mainstream media and celebrityism and scientism and all this shit that's been passed down over generations to become today's distraction, back then's distraction had the same effect on us from a historical reality. This is why all these slave movies are played over and over again. This is why the black man is always killed first in these Hollywood movies. This is why your Oscars in Hollywood is heavily and only white. It has to be extreme. It has to be extreme to the opposite perspectives. So far from questioning your reality that the space and distraction between what is your distraction, what is your present moment distraction right now, and what your honest connections are will never be understood, because you'll be spinning your wheels trying to get your head and your feet out of the shit storm that has been passed down to you from generation to generation. And this is the shit storm that's been passed down. The largest perspective that I'm seeing that we are disconnected from, and that is the focus of this illusion program, is the voice of the Aboriginal American, which is the voice of all black and brown, so-called black and brown peoples across the earth plane, outside of the colonial program, outside of the white supremacy mind control program, outside of the mainstream collective. The true connection with nature, the true understanding of history, the true origins of humanity are being disregarded in order to hold up these styrofoam pillars of the colonial mind control program. And once people start realizing the organic nature of our reality outside of the distraction, that's when the system really starts to be challenged. And groups like the Black Panthers were challenging this, like I said in previous videos, outside of all the COINTELPRO and stuff that got manipulated within from the outside in over time. That system in its essence in the beginning was organic and largely made up of women who were taking care of the community, feeding children in the community, breakfast, all kinds of stuff. It was about knowledge of the system, knowledge of the self, knowledge of how deep this program goes, this police state of the entire earth plane. So I'll end it with just listing off some of the main distractions. So, and this is stuff we really believe in. So your alternative news, TYT, Alex Jones. Alex Jones ties in parts of the conspiracy theory perspectives. TYT still ties in the belief in the Democratic, Republican political system. That's all mind control. That's slave. Polishing slave chains. Period. End of story. I don't give a shit what they say. Alex Jones backs Trump. I don't give a shit what conspiracies. You keep talking about reptilians and all kinds of shit. It don't fucking matter, because his so-called forward progress is based upon your ultimate enslavement. When you back Trump, when you back the political system, when you're talking about Americanism and all this other stuff, to make America great again, you're talking about post-Columbian enslavement. You're not even talking about the original Aboriginal Americans, the original peoples. You're not at all addressing the colonial program and the effect that it has on the entire earth plane. So that's just nixed. Fuck all that shit. TYT is just a more fluffy, mainstream version of Alex Jones. Alex Jones, these are all distractions. The mainstream media, so it goes mainstream media, totally distraction, basically Hollywood, celebrityism, scientism, and the colonialism perspective, blatantly. Then they try to get you with like kind of how the new age and new world order is being presented to you with stuff like TYT. It's like, oh, we're different from the mainstream media. We're different. And then they utilize all these storylines of so-called change like DAPL and Pizzagate. They utilize all of these, all these storylines to make you, not so much to empower you, but to empower their system, the way they are telling you the storyline, and not to empower you, but to empower your mind control. So it goes like mainstream media, TYT, Alex Jones. Then you have the obvious distractions like late night television shows where they just focus on celebrities and a comedic version of the news, which is a deeper layer of programming, because you believe, not only do you believe in the story because they're telling it to you and you trust these people, the celebrities and the talk show hosts, but you also simultaneously just kind of brush it aside because it's now laughable. So the shit that really matters isn't spoken about. They're not going to talk about DAPL. They're not going to talk about Pizzagate. They're not going to talk about the colonial program. Never, this stuff will never be addressed to the depths of the roots of this system because it's not a laughing matter anymore. It's a vibration that they keep you in. So late night is designed to do that. The university system and scientism, I've addressed that, obviously, especially when talking about the globe model, NASA hoax, NASA distractions, the nuclear distractions, all these satellites, all technology as a whole, transhumanism program. That's scientism is the foundation, the styrofoam foundation to the artificial future that is being presented to us by this distraction colonial program as a whole. Hollywood is another version of like late night, just distracting you, installing scientism perspectives, installing colonial perspectives, installing separation, everything. Every single layer is installed in a movie. The alchemy of movies as a whole is ridiculously rich. It's once you start to realize how much is coded within these movies, it's horrible. And these celebrities, this is why they sign a contract, and then this is why they get paid millions and millions of dollars to keep their mouth shut and not mention anything, and the same thing goes for athletes. The system is designed to having the majority of people living vicariously through athletes and celebrities. So you can control millions and millions of people by having them, by siphoning off their human resources and telling them that they have to go to work 40 hours a week to make less than a living wage, and then close the gaps on their own by by working more. And that's the American way, and that's all that other shit, whatever it is. You got to do what you got to do. You got to hustle. Some people are forced into prostitution. Yeah, women, that's not rare. I mean, women are selling their bodies, stripping, doing all kinds of stuff. Men are doing it too. It's an entire system based upon the fiat currency straw man system. So these are these systems that will never be addressed. This is why I said every single thing is a mind control program, a distraction. The economy, the politics, every single thing is a distraction. Because if they're not talking about your straw man, if they're not talking about the birth certificate program, they're not talking about the maritime admiralty system, the colonial program, mind control program itself, then everything is a distraction. Celebrities, so the distraction for so-called forward progress is stuff like the economy. So this is why they talk so much about the economy. The economy is based upon, it's about making everything complex. So like Scientism and the heliocentric pushers made the heliocentric model complex so you can believe it, and then they can quantify it with all this math and Einstein and Isaac Newton and all these Galileo, all these people. They can make everything complex so you feel dumb and just go along with the caste system of not only financially caste but also intellectually caste system. So you have this caste system of the university system, which says these are the smart people, these are the kind of smart people, and these are the dumb people. And the dumb people are poor, the kind of smart people are not as poor, and the super smart people who got a degree from the university system are the ones who can be rich. And even them can't even get any money. So nowadays. But anyway, the design of this system is to distract you and lock you in, to keep you focused on particular versions of the reality, and simultaneously keep you distracted from that which will inherently empower you. So the amplification of the economy, this is why everybody's talking about the economy so much. So TYT, every single channel that talks about the economy, even Alex Jones and all the politics as a whole, Obamacare, all this shit, it don't fucking matter when you come from the perspective of the fiat currency system itself, the straw man system itself. All that shit doesn't fucking matter. It all gets burned down when you address the colonial program itself, the origins of this stuff. So this is why it has to be built up in your head. So further than that, you have the so-called future with NASA, SpaceX, going to Mars and all this other shit to siphon off more money, adding more belief in the economic system, and also adding more focus and belief in the heliocentric model and the transhumanism agenda and the alien agenda. And then you have people like Oprah, David Wilcock, and all these people who play the outskirts of the New Age agenda, selling you different parts of it. So Oprah sells you the internal, finding the self, the law of attraction, the now moment, the Super Soul Sunday. She sells you that perspective, the personal perspective, while David Wilcock and Corey Goode and everybody on Ancient Aliens sells you the commercial the commercial plastic version of the distraction, which is this new age starseed alien agenda perspective. It's like, yes, we have all these whatever they're selling you, and it's rooted in the same foundation that the new age perspective, the orchestrated new age perspective, like Oprah comes from, with love and light and all this other shit. It doesn't want to talk about the true balances of nature, the true understandings of why people believe and need a so-called new age and what they're calling old. Why? Why? And what's older than old? To understand the artificiality of what we're calling new. The older than old will make you see more so than make you see more of what they're trying to call new. Because once you see older than old, because the only old that they're referencing is within the post-Columbian agenda, which is this industrial age, the fossil fuel industry, the slave program of today. But that's not everything. If you only tell that story and you don't see the creative story of your ancestors and the connection with spirit that your ancestors had, then you're buying into another mind control program. And that's the intention. That's on purpose. So you have that world that's a distraction. A whole community is based upon the New Age deception. A whole community is based upon the alien agenda. A whole community is based upon talking about the economy when you go online and all this stuff. There's people that wake up, their entire lives are dedicated to the economy, watching the trends and all this stuff. And the money will shift. The dollar will die, and then they'll install Bitcoin or something else, whatever it is. It's all the distraction. So you have, like Hollywood, you have the YouTube personalities and their perspectives, which are designed to simultaneously distract you and tell you what is important. So, and what is not important. So what they talk about and what they don't talk about is what you believe in your reality is real. So you have these young kids, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old people who are following these YouTube sensations, these personalities, and these people are largely empty. They have nothing, they're not grounded to anything of any kind of realness. They're still locked into the world of artificiality, the mainstream agenda, and they just made some kind of catchy sort of... Their personalities themselves are attractive because they are still who they are in one sense, but they're largely who they are based upon the surrounding world that is plastic, synthetic. But the essence of how they share who they are is believable. It's watchable. So that is utilized as a distraction and also as a form of telling people how to think about certain things and how not to think about certain things. So you will see that these YouTube people, they don't talk about anything deep, ever. They won't ever go into anything deep. If they do, they'll laugh it off just like the late night talk show hosts do. Because it's more about themselves. It's more about their synthetic version of reality, how they relate to the synthetic reality, than it is about the organic connections and interpretations of the system itself. So this is why if you meet a lot of these YouTube people, they're not the same people that they present themselves as on YouTube. They're not. They won't talk to you about certain things. They have the same kind of issues every other person has in their everyday reality. It's just not televised or put on a vlog or something like that. So that's another form of synthetic manipulation, because then you have people trying to be like that. They're trying to be like somebody else's representative. Same thing happens with Hollywood. People trying to be like Hollywood celebrities. Same thing, just in a future version of it. So that's another distraction and another mind control program. Technology is tied up with the economy and the university system and selling you the future. So this goes back to stealing time and manipulating you to worship the evolution theory and the monkey mind and that whole thing. Politics does the same thing. It builds off of the forefathers and the Constitution, and the true democracy of the United States of America is the best democracy, and we need to spread democracy. Like, that's an entire Burger King commercial. That's a bacon double cheeseburger heart attack burger commercial telling you it's organic salad for the earth. It's a complete opposite when you understand the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex. But the commercial won't tell you that. It's like the small writing in contracts when soldiers sign a contract to join the military, or when you hear these prescription drugs that are on every single commercial now, and they see that small writing, or even on the radio. They tell you, like, I heard the other day on the radio, they got something called, they were calling it like Super Viagra or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but this is on just the regular radio. And then they got that small writing. Those are actual words you're supposed to understand. And yes, the small writing, the disclaimer. Next to them. That's the next commercial. Like, this is it's a mind control manipulation on every level. And they're slowly herding consciousness off a cliff. So fear, war, separation, genetically modified psychology, genetically modified life force energy, genetically modified connection with spirit, genetically modified connections with culture, genetically modified connections with each other. All of this is to maintain low tones, maintain low vibrations. And the main ones, which I'll end it on this, that they'll never talk about, are your straw man, the birth certificate program, the legal name fraud, the enslavement of your very essence that's trapped, your original birth certificate that's trapped in the vault of the state that you were born in, that you can never get a hold of, because that's an actual alchemy. The money that's being made off of your birth certificate, the debt that's being made off of your buying into the illusion during your life, the money that's being made off of your death certificate, the stock bonds that your death certificate, your birth certificate, and the monetary system is, that'll never be addressed. The colonial program itself will never be addressed. The supremacy program, the white genetic annihilation, it will never be addressed, because this is the essence of the system. The empowerment of the no less the two the two brightest and most obvious voices of the North American Aboriginal peoples, which we call the Native Americans and the Aboriginal Americans, or so-called Black and African Americans. That balance, that goes into Mexico too. This is why Mexico has so many connections in their hieroglyphics and their pyramids with ancient Egypt. This is why you have ancient Egyptian artifacts being found in the Grand Canyon. This is why you have everything in the Grand Canyon being named after ancient Egypt. There's so many connections that are of an organic nature that will never be addressed. And the distraction, the commercial version of distracting you from that is like the straw man of the Aboriginal American is what the African American label and the black man is label is. So if you're still calling yourself African American, or you're still calling yourself a color like black, then you'll never tap into your organic root system that is linking you to the life force energy of who and what you are on the spiritual level and on the ancestral level. Once that power is tapped into, the entire foundation of this synthetic version of reality will be uprooted, and a new understanding, understanding, and overstanding of humanity will be activated. Tapping into the ancient sciences, the ancient alchemy, the true science, the true spirit behind the building of the pyramids, Machu Picchu, all of these ancient structures that were tapped directly into nature, the relationships that shaman and the ancient indigenous peoples have and had with earth, spirit, each other. Once that stuff is understood, you're in another vibration, and this is what's slowly being unveiled. And like I said, that is a different world. The understanding of alchemy, the understanding of ancient sciences, the understanding of your ancestors, the understanding of, and simultaneously understanding the deception program. Because in order to get tapped into your ancestral threads, you have to first disconnect yourself from that which is synthetic. So the simultaneous implosion and destruction of the synthetic version of reality needs to be balanced by your reconnection to your ancestors and spirit. Otherwise, you'll be floating out there in nothingness, which is what the New Age mind control program is existing out there for. And this is why you have a majority of so-called white people who are locked into that New Age perspective, because they have no real abundant, I'll say abundant, there's not an abundance of culture and ancestral roots that they can tap into that are of a spiritual nature. In fact, the New Age itself is so-called white people's version of culture, the new version of connecting with spirit. It's largely, like I said, it's not completely. But when you go into these so-called New Age communities and you think New Age, the artificial New Age, the orchestrated New Age, you think of something light and fluffy and something very generic. Like, even when you watch these Ancient Aliens and all that other stuff, technology, this is all so-called white people. And not to make it like a race thing, just to look at it for what it is and see why it is what it is. Because you have the melanated people, the so-called black and brown peoples across the earth plane, who have a different form of connecting to spirit, connecting to the ancestors, that is in many cases universally similar. And how I'm seeing the New Age today is just like we believed into the status quo of the colonial program, the fiat currency system, the destructive intelligence program that is being amplified by the military-industrial complex and in order to hide the supremacy program and the fear of white genetic annihilation. The New Age program is the extension of that. And it's just another version of separation. You don't need something new if what is already originally you're connected to is still there. So what are we really calling new? And why are we calling it new? And what are the majority of, what are the energies focusing on? All these disclosure people. Why don't you see like a Martin Luther King or a Malcolm X talking about, we need disclosure? Because this is a mind control program from a particular version of reality. You have people tied into politics and the university system that are selling that mind control program, that don't have connections to the ancestral threads of the Native Americans, the Aboriginal people, and the people that predate what they are calling old, which is just old based upon the post-Columbian era. We are beyond that. So that's basically what I wanted to share, to kind of bring together the perspectives of this compartmentalization of focus that keeps us from really putting things into perspective and seeing how things are all lined up, because the distraction is thick and it evolves itself every day. This is why you have these so-called space videos every day, political news every day, something with Trump every day. It takes so long for the mainstream people to even talk about the Dakota Access Pipeline. How many people were injured because they were trying to avoid and so-called, like Obama said, let it play out. They're just going to move it and expand it. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for joining. And until next time, like I said, I might be slowing down a little bit on the videos to focus on. There's actually a couple of books that I'm writing right now. So I'm in another groove of creative flow. So it might affect my video output. But if something comes up like this video comes up, then I'll go ahead and do it. But yeah, so thank you for the support once again. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.